ever hear somebody use a couple of words, stick a couple of words together that you looked at and you said, huh? Those two don't go together. Let me give you an example, and this is not the one that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give you the example of anarcho-tyranny. Now, the people who used this term explained exactly what it was that they were saying. And what they were saying is that there were people out there who had no real rules that applied to them, while other people were essentially under tyrannical rule. Right? They had people who were telling them exactly what they could do and exactly what they would say. So you had one set of people who were in the anarcho part of the thing, and another group of people who were in the tyrannical part of the thing. They were being treated as if they were under a tyranny. I wanted to talk today about an actual impossible duo, because that seems impossible, but when you think about it, you can actually make logical sense of it to some degree. I'm going to talk about this impossible duo, an impossible duo today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 11th of October, 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. The subject today, as I've said, will be impossible duo, and I'm going to go ahead and get through my notes, and this should help you get some idea basically what I'm talking about. I recently saw a social media post in which somebody really used the expression socio-anarchy. It was at that point I recognized the person understood neither root word. Nor did they apparently understand both base concepts were bad. Let me take the time for today's video to talk about both ideas. We'll start with the easy one, that being anarchy. No sane human being truly expects anarchy to, quote, work, end of quote. Why? It's really simple. If nothing else, power abhors a vacuum. Put another way, anarchy does not and cannot exist for long. And when it does, it's typically brought about by the folks who want to fill the vacuum. Socialism, on the other hand, is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Socialist leadership is invariably oligarchical in nature. It's almost invariably also totalitarian. Its existence is no more desirable than is anarchy. Maybe the most important reality, though, is anarchy and socialism cannot exist together. Socialism loves power and commonly takes it more or less mercilessly. Anarchy, at least in theory, hates authority and does what it can to make it go away. Such is the conundrum in the expression socio-anarchy. They truly are an impossible duo. Now, that's the end of my notes. Let me go ahead and kind of continue on with a couple of the sort of threads that I've already introduced in talking about this subject. Look, you can say what you want, but it's almost impossible to find an example of socialism in which it didn't end up being either oligarchical or monarchical or some combination of the two, and totalitarian in just about every case. China is pretty much totalitarian. North Korea, totalitarian. Cuba, totalitarian. The former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, totalitarian. Almost anybody would agree with that. France is one of the few examples where it was actually less totalitarian than it might have been in other instances, but they didn't really embrace full-on socialism either. And for that matter, neither did England when they did that. And people like to argue for the Norse countries, but the fact is none of them is actually socialist, and they'll tell you as much if you're willing to listen. But the point is, socialism almost always requires some entity of people who are better than you, elites, if you will, to be in control and telling you what you need to do because you're not smart enough to do it for yourself. Anarchy, look, we argue about right and left all the time what it means, and I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to talk about wanting more power and wanting less power. Socialism is on the wanting more power end of the scale. There are things that are beyond it. There are types of totalitarianism where the person who's in charge doesn't give a rip about anybody except themselves, and all they want is their palaces. You know, you read here Saddam Hussein and similar. Various of the tsars and other individuals who have lived in past, certainly the kings of England. But my point is that socialism lives on that end of the scale, the more control end. Anarchy, by its very nature, if it's truly considered and purely conceived, must live on the opposite end, the less power end of that scale. That's how that has to work. There's no way around that. So when you talk about an idea of socio-anarchy, the assumption is that you've got rose-colored glasses on and you think that what's going to happen is people are going to behave in a properly, quote, socialist fashion with no control. So basically what you're talking about is what amounts to communism, which is not socialism. Socialism is on the road to communism, but it isn't communism. The final phase of communism is when people lose the need for government because they supposedly all suddenly become self-aware and understand that in order for society to work, we must have these things, and I must fit myself in society, so I do that. And then whenever anybody misbehaves, we rise up and squash that individual. It'll never happen, people. That'll never happen. The reason government needed to come into existence in the first place is petty squabbles will always occur. They will always happen and you'll never stop them. Even with the government, you can't really stop them. But at least you can make laws to say if you engage in this kind of squabble, this kind of misbehavior, guess what? We're going to take you down. And that's why socialism in some senses could be said to be preferable to anarchy. It's not really, because it gets to the point where it becomes so oppressive that you have basically no freedom under it. And that's why it's not really any better than anarchy. But when you start talking about a concept like socio-anarchy, you show that you're either naive or that you really aren't thinking about what it is that you're saying, or maybe that you just don't have the capacity to understand the two. Maybe that's it. I don't know. All I know to tell you is I don't see any reasonable way to accomplish something that amounts to socialism and anarchy at the same time. Anarchy abhors any kind of government. Socialism pretty much requires a government, and usually requires, as I say, a group of people who are going to be elites and going to tell the rest of the world how they need to live their lives. And I'm just going to tell you, you are telling me that I'm too stupid to figure out how to live my life, or you're saying something else that maybe I just can't, is beyond my scope to understand. But it seems to me like what you're saying, if you're pushing socialism at all, is, Kurt, you're not smart enough to live your own life. That's what it seems like you're saying to me. So I just want for people to understand this very simple idea. When you use a term, when you coin a term, when you take a term from someone else, you need to understand that if you don't understand the underlying terms, if it's a mashup of different terms, then you probably are going to periodically use things that are kind of dumb. And in the case of socio-anarchy or socio-anarchism or however you want to term that, that's a case of something where the two will never properly fit together. That's just the long and the short of that thing. You can like it, you can accept it or not. Again, the simple answer is this. Whether you believe in left and right being left wants more government, right wants less, which is how it always seems to end up, regardless what anybody says. Whether you believe that or not, the thing that you need to understand is this, okay? There is a part of humanity that wants more power. There is a part of humanity that wants less. Then there are people in the middle who want a manageable amount of government that does certain very specific things and not anything more than that. I'm in that third category. I want a government that doesn't manage my healthcare, education, air travel, communications. I don't want that. I don't have any use for that. I don't think it's useful, and I don't think it's something that we should allow to exist, to be quite frank. I think allowing that much power on federal level, particularly on a national level, is ridiculous. But when you say anarchy, you mean people who want no government. When you say socialism, you pretty much invariably mean people who want a government that's doing everything for everybody. I don't want either of those. I don't want either of those, and no sensible person in my mind should. But when you start to mash them up and make socio-anarchy out of it, I'm afraid you're a little bit confused. Those two cannot work together. They're like protons and antiprotons, if you will. Okay. I need to go ahead and wrap up. I've actually gone a little over today. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Monday, the 11th of October of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 12th of October of 2021. I may end up getting my video out a little bit late tomorrow. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Yes, I started with welcome again, and you are welcome, but nonetheless, Rumble is my preferred platform. As I've said a number of times before, you can give me a boxing glove or a plus as a positive feedback on Rumble. You can give me a minus as a negative feedback. You can give me a thumbs up or a like, or a thumbs down or a dislike on YouTube if you choose to do that. And on any platform that you have the ability to comment, I urge you to do that so that I have some idea what you're thinking, what you think about the content that I'm putting out there, and maybe for correction that you can give me about on things that I haven't thought about. Today's subject has been the impossible duo, and I forgot to put tomorrow's subject into my deal today, so let me find it real quick. Tomorrow we are going to talk about the truth is no less true. That may seem like an odd thing, but I'll explain why it is that I'm talking about that, and you'll get an idea what's going on there tomorrow. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you on Tuesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Monday, the 11th of October of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.